Hey y'all, it's me. It's y'all girl, the real deal. You already know. Like, share, and subscribe. What's up, real deal? How y'all doing out there? Hope y'all taking care of yourself. Staying positive, okay? It's all about being positive. And then if you don't want to keep it real, you ain't got the deal, so which way to go. Out the door, right? Yeah. But what we gonna do? We're gonna go ahead and hit the like button. I shouldn't have to say that. Y'all know how hard I work over here. We're gonna go ahead on real deal. We're gonna talk about Sasha. Miss Sasha, we have been in, this is day 3 for us. Sasha, make sure I got shot. Sasha. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Sasha. Let me switch this C into S. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about Sasha, y'all. Beautiful young lady got trapped in a triangle. Poor baby. Okay, I got to change her name. Okay, let me give you a little information about Sasha. Okay. Okay. This is day 3 Sasha murder trial of a woman. She was accused of fatally shooting a San Diego rapper back in 2021. Okay. Is expected to be in the hand of the jury today. Got a Myra Friday. So let's see what's going to happen, y'all. I already know the answer, but we gonna hold on. Hold on. Let me respect the young lady. Well, she did get on the stand. She testified. She said what she did. She didn't lie. So she didn't have nothing to hide. Okay. So I like that about her. She took that stand. Hold on for a minute. Sorry about that, y'all.
You may be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a restful evening. I am going to read you the charge of the court. This is the law that will govern you as you go through your deliberations. You will be receiving a copy of this charge to go back with you during your deliberations. In 2021 CR 3863, the state of Texas versus Sasha Skare, charge of the court. Members of the jury, the defendant, Sasha Skare, stands charged by indictment with the offense of murder, alleged to have been committed on or about the 22nd day of January 2021 in Bexar County, Texas. The defendant has pleaded not guilty. 1. Our law provides that a person commits the offense of murder if she intentionally or knowingly causes the death of an individual, or intends to cause serious bodily injury and commits an act clearly dangerous to human life that causes the death of an individual. 2, individual means a human being who is alive. Bodily injury means physical pain, illness, or any impairment of physical condition. Serious bodily injury means bodily injury that creates a substantial risk of death or that causes death, serious permanent disfigurement, or protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily member or organ. Deadly weapon means a firearm or anything manifestly designed, made, or adapted for the purpose of inflicting death or serious bodily injury, or anything that in the manner of its use or intended use is capable of causing death or serious bodily injury. Firearm means any device designed, made, or adapted to expel a projectile through a barrel by using the energy generated by an explosion or burning substance, or any device readily convertible to that use. 3, a person acts intentionally or with intent with respect to a result of her conduct when it is her conscious objective or desire to cause the result. A person acts knowingly or with knowledge with respect to a result or of her conduct when she is aware that her conduct is reasonably certain to cause the result.
Sad that day, yeah.
Four, now if you unanimously find from the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about the 22nd day of January 2021 in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant, Sasha Skare, did intentionally or knowingly cause the death of an individual, namely Martell Derouen, by shooting Martell Derouen with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, or the defendant, Sasha Skare, with intent to cause serious bodily injury to an individual, namely Martell Derouen, did commit an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death of Martell Derouen by shooting Martell Derouen with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, then you will find the defendant, Sasha Skare, guilty of the offense of murder as charged in the indictment and do not consider paragraphs 5 and 6. If you do not so find beyond a reasonable doubt, or if you have a reasonable doubt thereof, you will find the defendant, Sasha Skare, not guilty of murder as charged in the indictment and proceed to paragraph 5 to next consider if the defendant is guilty of the lesser included offense of manslaughter. 5, our law provides that a person commits the offense of manslaughter if she recklessly causes the death of an individual. The applicable terms defined in paragraph 2 have the same meaning here. You are instructed that a person acts recklessly or is reckless with respect to the result of her conduct when she is aware of but consciously disregards a substantial and unjustifiable risk that the result will occur. The result must be of such a nature and degree that its disregard constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary person would exercise under all the circumstances as viewed from the actor's standpoint. 6, now if you unanimously find from the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about the 22nd day of January 2021 in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant, Sasha Skare, did recklessly cause the death of an individual, namely Martell Derouen, by shooting Martell Derouen with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, then you will find the defendant, Sasha Skare, guilty of the lesser included offense of manslaughter. If you do not so find beyond a reasonable doubt, or if you have a reasonable doubt thereof, you will find the defendant, Sasha Skare, not guilty of the lesser included offense of manslaughter. Written or recorded statements made by a witness to investigators or other officers, or police reports made by officers and tendered by the prosecution to the defense for purposes of cross-examination are not part of the evidence unless introduced in evidence. Many times, statements and reports may be marked with an exhibit number, but are neither offered nor received in evidence. I can send only statements and reports received in evidence to the jury room. The grand jury indictment is not evidence of guilt. It is the means whereby a defendant is brought to trial in a felony prosecution. It is not evidence, nor can it be considered by you in determining whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty. All persons are presumed to be innocent, and no person may be convicted of an offense unless each element of the offense is proved beyond a reasonable doubt. The fact that a person has been arrested, confined, or indicted for, or otherwise charged with the offense gives rise to no inference of guilt at her trial. The law does not require a defendant to prove her innocence or produce any evidence at all. The presumption of innocence alone is sufficient to acquit the defendant unless the jurors are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt of the defendant's guilt after careful and impartial consideration of all the evidence in the case. The burden of proof in all criminal cases rests upon the state throughout the trial and never shifts to the defendant. The prosecution has the burden of proving the defendant guilty, and it must do so by proving each and every element of the offense charged beyond a reasonable doubt. If it fails to do so, you must find the defendant not guilty. It is not required that the prosecution prove guilt beyond all possible doubt. It is required that the prosecution's proof excludes all reasonable doubt concerning the defendant's guilt. In the event you have a reasonable doubt as to the defendant's guilt after considering all the evidence before you and these instructions, you will acquit her and say by your verdict not guilty. During your deliberations in this case, you must not consider, discuss, nor relate any matters not in evidence before you. You should not consider nor mention any personal knowledge or information you may have about any fact or person connected with this case which is not shown by the evidence. You are instructed that you must not communicate with or provide any information to anyone or receive any information from anyone by any means about this case. You may not use any electronic device or media, such as telephone, cell phone, smartphone, iPhone, BlackBerry, iPad, tablet, or computer. The internet, any internet service, or any text or instant messaging service, or any social media platform, internet chat room, blog, or website to include, but not limited to, Facebook, MySpace, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, or Twitter to communicate with anyone any information or receive any information from anyone about this case or to conduct any research about this case until I accept your verdict. You are instructed that you are not to let bias, prejudice, or sympathy play any part in your deliberations. You are the exclusive judges of the facts proved, of the credibility of the witnesses, and of the weight to be given the testimony. But the law of the case you must receive from the court as contained in these instructions and be governed by them. You must disregard any comment or statement made by the court during the trial or in these instructions which may seem to indicate an opinion with respect to any fact, item of evidence, or verdict to be reached in this case. No such indication was intended. You are instructed that the statements of counsel made during the course of the trial or during the argument, if not supported by the evidence, or statements of law made by counsel, if not in harmony with the law as stated to you by the court in these instructions, are to be wholly disregarded.
Recordings just got better.
After argument of counsel, you will retire to the jury room. Select your own presiding juror and proceed with your deliberations. After you have reached a unanimous verdict, the presiding juror will certify your verdict by filling in the appropriate forms attached to this charge and signing his or her name as presiding juror. A unanimous vote means all 12 jurors must agree. The forms are not intended to suggest to you what your verdict should be. Your sole duty at this time is to determine whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty under the indictment in this cause, and restrict your deliberations to the issue of whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty and nothing else. If the jury wishes to communicate with the court, they shall notify the bailiff. During your deliberations, if you request that testimony be read back, under the law, I cannot read testimony back to you generally. You must have a dispute regarding the testimony about which you are asking, if you are, and if so, you will need to specify exactly what you are in dispute about. If you have a disagreement about a certain witness's testimony and you specify as to what you are in disagreement
spot, she runs out. She runs down
Okay, y'all, I had skipped a little bit.
And she shut it down. She didn't want anything else to do with him. But unknowing to her family, they still thought that she had a relationship with him, so they invited him to Christmas in Austin. Martell shows up on Christmas and knocks on the door, and Sasha's there in a really awkward position. She goes along with it, and then gradually through the night and through the next couple weeks, she forgives him. And then on the fateful day, on Friday, the 22nd, he picks her up from Austin. He drives to Austin to pick her up. She doesn't have a car. So he picks her up from Austin, brings her back to the apartment sometime in the afternoon on the 22nd. They're hanging out. Sasha is painting. There's a show the next night on Saturday, the 23rd. And one of the exhibits is a photo that we described and had Sasha describe that's her purse, her shoes, her slides, and she was working on this painting for Saturday night. Martell was in the studio working on his show Saturday night. They're drinking Hennessy, that doesn't matter, but they're both drinking throughout the day. And as the day gradually goes, I think more intoxication hits, but they are working on their shows. They decide to take a break. They start watching a movie. They're on the couch. Dinner time comes. Sasha goes into the kitchen to make dinner. While she's in the kitchen, she gets a FaceTime call from a photographer. The FaceTime call is out in the open, Martell, and you can see it yourselves through the pictures. Martell's on the couch in the living room. Actually, here's a good picture that's right here on the desk.
Get ready to claim your
He's on the couch, she's in the kitchen. He can hear every word of this conversation. He gets jealous that she's talking to him about this other project, this side project. She finishes dinner, she goes back, they sit down on the couch, finish watching the movie, and then she's a little bit tired, so she goes and she lays down on the bed. There's a lot of pictures of the bed. I just picked one of them, okay? She's laying on the side closest to the windows, as she described. The sheets were on the bed when this started, as she testified. Martell, she's on her phone, scrolling through her phone. Martell comes in from the other room, turns on the light, and starts screaming at her. He walks around the bed and he starts snatching her stuff. Her stuff is on the other side of the bed by her side. She's like, "Give me my stuff. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Get out of here. Get out of my apartment." This is around 8:30, 8 to 8:30, we speculate. She has nowhere to go. He picked her up from Austin. Where's she gonna go? He's grabbing her stuff. This is what sparks the whole thing off. So then he throws her down onto the bed, gets on top of her, and starts beating and choking her. She testified she couldn't breathe. He was punching her, grabbing her neck. And we have 3 pictures that she took on January 26th. And again, she testified that her attorney that she called as soon as she heard that a warrant was out, told her, "Do you have any documented injuries?" So she took pictures. And these are the result of 4 days after the incident. There's clearly scratched fingernail marks on her neck and black eyes. As he is pinning her down. She's struggling and she can't get up. The bed breaks and it falls to the floor because it was suspended on here, and y'all can see on another one that's close up, that when the bed collapsed, she testified that that was when she could break him free. So she jumps off the bed on the other side of the bed, crawls down, and the gun is by the bedside. She knew that he kept a gun there. She grabs it out of the basket, stands up, and points it at Martell and says, "Don't effing touch me." She said, "Leave me alone." She goes running out of the bedroom, okay? And then this is important because the state is making quite a incident about this. Remember, she's barefoot. Her shoes are right in front of the easel. She's barefoot in the kitchen. She grabs dishes, not these dishes. These are decorative dishes that are sitting there. Remember, she had made dinner. She starts grabbing anything she can and is throwing it on the ground to get him to go back. She doesn't want to use the gun and shoot him in his apartment. She did that to have him stop coming after her in the bedroom after he had just attacked her. So she throws it down. Now, the jumping over the counter is, this counter has a huge corner on it. She jumped over the corner to miss the broken glass because she's barefoot. She didn't jump over the counter where these decorative dishes are sitting. So of course that doesn't make sense. But it does make sense that she jumps over the counter and it aligns with her story. So take a look at that picture because that's just one of those gaps that was kind of troublesome.
You guys thought it was fun to hear the NFL on CBS streams live.
I got no commercials, anything.
He's throwing down the dishes. He's backed off temporarily, and she goes running out of the apartment. She doesn't turn around and shoot him and kill him. If she, 5 minutes? If she wants to murder him, she would turn right around and kill him on the spot. She runs out. She runs down the hall, goes into the stairwell, and he's chasing her, except he locks her out of the house. Remember, no shoes, no purse, no credit cards, nothing. She has a dead cell phone in her hand and a gun. She goes into the stairwell to try to call somebody to come and get her. Remember, her mom is in Austin. She's in San Antonio. It's at 9 o'clock at night now. Her phone's dead. She goes back to the catty corner apartment. She starts knocking down the hall. One of the neighbors comes to the door and he gives her an old cell phone charger, and she goes back into the stairwell or down to the other floors. She doesn't remember because remember, she's also intoxicated at this point. So she's fuzzy. It's 2 years ago. This is traumatic for her. So she charges her phone enough to get to the point that she can make a call. As she's having her phone charge, now she's upset. And she also realizes, I can't really leave. I'm not going to go back to Austin without my purse, my credit cards, my shoes. She goes back to the apartment door and she's banging on the door. Okay. At this point, the state wants to make a big deal about the fact that she was in fear of her life. She was in fear for her life in that bedroom when she grabbed that gun and stood up and said, "Don't come near me." When she's coming back, she's not in fear for her life anymore. And I don't think she implied that. I don't think we implied that. She wanted her stuff, so she's mad. We're not saying that she accidentally discharged the gun. We're not saying she slapped it like this. She actually was banging the door with the butt of the gun in her right hand. She's banging, banging, banging. Martell is silent back there, doesn't say a word. And you know what our theory is that unfortunately, he was quiet because he's afraid that the police are there. because he had just beat her. She's bleeding. She's got a black eye that I don't know how prevalent it was then, but domestic violence is taken seriously here. Banging on the door, he's silent. So she's banging with that gun. She wants to get his attention and say, open the door, I need my stuff. Steps back, pulls the gun up, and the gun goes off as she's pulling it up. And I'm not saying goes off accidentally. She admits to pulling the trigger. She's owning it. She stood in the light and said it. She didn't accidentally discharge it as it's coming up. She pulled it up and fired. Unfortunately, I speculate Martell, looking to see if it's the police, leans down to a really low peephole, and this horrific thing happens. Martell gets shot straight in the head and falls dead to the floor. She did not. Can you please silence?
Somebody's phone going off. That's a charge.
She did not intend to hurt Martell. She did not intend to kill Martell. Business guilt after that they're going to infer or claim that she called 911 and she lied. She called 911 to get her stuff. She needed into the apartment. She gave the name of Joya because Joya is his wife and would realistically have access to the house. So she wanted to get her stuff out of there. If she was a murderer, why would she call 911 from her own cell phone? Everybody knows they can trace the call back to your number. Like, she did give the wrong address. She slipped up. She's freaked out. She's in the middle of this horrific thing, still back in the bedroom or where he is, but it's still silent. But yet she continues banging on the door after the gunfire. Then he doesn't answer. She goes, calls 911, makes that stupid phone call, and it sounds really bad, but you'll notice that she's not freaking out saying, I think I killed him. She's not saying any of that. She says, there's a hole in the door. I want to make sure he's okay, but I need to get into my...
I thought she said she had 5 minutes to go. She's still talking. Whew.
She leaves. She goes down the hall. She goes down to the other floor where the ring cameras pick her up. Yeah, 1 second. Let me finish. She's pacing up and down the hall, but she's not running. She's not panicked. She has a gun in her hand. If she murdered him, why would she still be carrying a gun? You wouldn't put yourself in a situation of walking up and down a hallway where most people have cameras now, and if not, the apartment complex would have cameras in the hall. She calls a friend to come pick her up, and he takes her back to Austin. After a few days, when the 26th comes and the investigation, she learns there's a warrant for her arrest, and she turns herself in. And she has been waiting for this day ever since.
Okay, that's it.
You know what? We wish the neighbor downstairs, y'all heard the audio of that. We wish somebody else would have called 911 when they heard that horrible fighting and slamming and everything else, because maybe that could have prevented this horrific tragedy where a young man lost his life and Sasha's facing her life, the rest of her life, that she's never gonna be able to overcome this no matter what happens. 1 second. So, ladies and gentlemen, Sasha is still young. She's 24. She was 21 when this happened. She was stupid. She did a stupid thing. She was trapped. She didn't have her stuff. She's mad. She's intoxicated. She fires off a gun to get his attention, and tragedy strikes. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam now that I'm taking up all the time, which I told him I was going to. But we are asking you to really consider the law in this case, hold the state to their.
She didn't know that there was a recording. She didn't know that the recording would surface. They're saying that she's not a cold-blooded killer. Listen to the 911 call. They made the point that the 911 call, that she knows that her phone number would come up. She didn't know that, and listen to the 911 call. The operator asks her, what's your phone number? And at that moment, the recording is hard to hear. And towards the end, she gives the wrong last four numbers. Deliberate misdirection. Sounds very cold. She's putting lies above Martell. She's putting lies above Joya. She's putting lies above everything because that's what she values. She values her own interests. And let's go look back at the additional lies that she's describing. She's describing Martell grabbing her stuff, giving it to her, and making her leave, and she refuses to leave. And they make this notion, this stink about she had nowhere to go. She was missing for days after the shooting. She had everywhere to go. She was resourceful. She found a place to go. And even in her testimony, she said from time to time I would travel by Uber. This was not an individual who was going to be stranded. And let's go back to the bedroom. Her items are neatly packed away, inconsistent with what she's describing to you. And they showed you pictures of the assault. And they described how there's scratch marks on her neck. And as all of you know, if you're going to scratch your neck or scratch somebody else's neck in anger, you're going to get your skin. You're going to get their skin on your nails, on their nails. It's a lie. There's no timing, no date stamp, no one to attest as to when these injuries occurred. Again, she's asking you to believe her that this happened, but why should you? Again, the evidence doesn't support these scratch marks on her neck. If you, at some point in your lives, in all our lives, we begin to realize that for every lie that we tell, we try and twist reality into something it's not.
Are you sick of having issues with your webinars, wasting tons of time?
Yeah, it's done. It's your webinar.
Sasha said lie after lie, twisting reality into something that she wanted it to be. And as we all know, or you will know as you get older, that once you're twisting, at some point the lies lose grasp on reality and reality starts unwinding to get back to the truth. And what I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, what we have seen the last 2 days is reality resetting. What the camera captured as Sasha was walking by line was reality resetting itself. What we saw yesterday in her inability to answer these questions and her ability to lie to you was what we saw reality reset. And at the end of the day, the reality is that she murdered Martell. And we're asking you to find her guilty of that. Thank you for your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to send you back to the charge of the court to begin your deliberations. Regarding the evidence, I am going to go ahead and send back the pictures and any DVDs that were entered. However, as far as the physical evidence, the evidence that was submitted into envelopes, I'm not going to send that back. However, you are more than welcome to view it. But please request that if you do want to view it so that we can send that back with the deputies, along with gloves if you need to handle anything, anything like that. We will await your verdict. Thank you very much.
All right, for the jury.
All right, y'all. The jury, they are going to do the verdict today. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to skip it all the way to the verdict. They're going to tell you they reach a verdict, okay? Or what? So what I would put right here, jury deliberation. Where was that? Okay, we'll say. Deliberation. Okay. Okay, it's supposed to be an R and an E in there. Okay, they should have it ready now. So we'll just scoot on over and then we'll go to the deliberation. This was one of the quickest. I'm skipping it. Skipping.
Find Peter Parker. What's the thing on his?
Skipping. Excuse me. Still okay. Skipping. Why not? Hold up, y'all. I don't know. Oh, decent family talking. Hold on, yeah. Be her mother.
Oh, sorry.
Would you please raise your right hand and state your full name?
Melissa Davis. Melissa Ann Davis.
Ms. Davis, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
can you tell us how you knew Martell?
He was my son.
And when was he born?
June 18th, 1986.
And where did he grow up?
New Iberia, Louisiana.
And as he grew into adulthood, can you describe to the jury what path he took for the career in terms of becoming a young man? Can you describe that path?
Okay, so when Martell was, of course, he went to, he was a kid and then he went to high school. Once he graduated from high school, he went to the military. He joined the military. Because my husband was in the Marine Corps for 20 years and he decided he wanted to follow and go into the military.
And how old was your son when he joined the military?
18.
And do you know how long was he in the military?
6 years.
Do you know what kind of work he did in the military?
He was intelligence.
And after he left the military, can you describe to us what path he took?
Once Martell left the military, he started, he bought a home. He did some real estate. He bought homes and kind of flipped them, making, investments, basically, doing investments.
And how did he get involved in music and becoming a producer of music? Can you describe that?
That was always one of his dreams to do that, but he also knew that you got to crawl before you walk. So he knew that he needed another career path first. And so he chose that he wanted to go in the military first. And then he decided once he got out that he wanted to study music and become a producer.
And do you remember the time around when Joya and your son married?
Yes.
And as you know, at the time of Martell's death, they were separated.
Right.
But as Joya's testified, they seem to have still a kind relationship with each other.
Absolutely. We all always got together. Me and my husband would come down. They were separated, but when we came down, we always did things together. We were together.
And as you can imagine, usually when most people hear about couples separating, there's a lot of bitterness.
No, absolutely not.
Can you tell me how Martell influenced the good nature part of that separation? How were they able to keep things so pleasant or good?
Because Martell was a great person and Joya was a great person and they were very respectful to each other. And so, at one point, I didn't even really know they were separated because they were still so close and all the time.
Throughout this trial, we've seen various supporters of Martell's memory in court throughout the week. You, of course, have been upstairs. You're
Yes.
not able to listen to the testimony.
Right.
Can you just briefly describe who they are and where they're sitting so that the jury knows who they are?
I have my son here, Trey, and he's supposed to be overseas. He plays basketball. He's a professional basketball player, so he stayed back to support me because
was different. So,
well, I can't. Every day is very hard. I haven't slept in a very long time. It's just as a mother to lose a son and to lose him that way, it's unimaginable. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, nobody, ever.
And the last question I'll ask you is regarding your son. What was the thing that you admired most about him?
His kind spirit. Martell was anybody in this room would have loved to have him as a son. He was amazing. And it was everything about him that I just love. And he always was so attentive. He made sure that we were always, not even just me, but everybody. He made sure everybody was okay and good, you know.
And at the time of Martell's death, how old was he?
Martell was, I think, 35.
I'm truly devastated. I don't sleep good at night anymore. So
And finally, can you describe from your perspective how his loss has affected the rest of his family?
somewhat. I ain't gonna say somewhat the same. Exactly the same. We all pretty much feel the same. We trying to I ain't gonna say move on, but move with the situation at hand. It's real difficult. So we're all going through a real difficult time right now. Okay, well,
I'll pass it. There are no questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have no objection.
State calls Joya. Derouen.
And I'm going to remind you that you are still under oath. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Joy, we talked a little bit about it in the first phase of the trial, but what I'd like you to do is expand a little bit more on who Martell was, so that anybody who's never met him can get a sense of who he was.
He was a very giving person. He helped anybody. I know if any one of you would have met him, you would have loved him. He recently was enrolled in college, Full Sail University, for music because he wanted to master his craft. He was a veteran. He served our country. He was silly. He was a foodie. He loved to eat. He just had a light around him that if you were in his presence, you would gravitate towards it. Kids, people, just anybody.
Between the time that you separated in 2019 up until his death, how often do you think you would see him spend time with you?
Once a week, holidays. I'm a big cooker, so Thanksgiving, it's just me and him. We did a full spread. He was like, I'm gonna come over and please do Thanksgiving. I'll buy the groceries. I'm like, okay. I went over to his place around Christmas time. He asked me to help him clean up because he was expecting his brother, his older brother, Skylar, to visit, and he needed to borrow my air mattress, so I left his place. And so once a week, I was also seeing him to do his hair for him. He wore, at the time, he was growing his hair out, so he wanted like braids or like twists like his brother has over there. And so I would do that for him anytime he asked me to.
As you can imagine, many of us in our lives, when we hear about a separation or we see a separation, all we see as separation is happening among couples, the bitterness and the ugliness and unkind words. That doesn't seem to be the case with you.
No, not at all. I was unconditional, but we did have an agreement that, if we weren't agreeing on things as far as future wise, like I wanted the kids. I wanted a garden, a dog, things like that. And he wanted to pursue his music career. It's like, who am I to hinder him from doing that? And who is he me from? So it was what it was. And we didn't file for divorce because maybe, you know, once you let something go, if it comes back, it's real, right? So we never knew if that could be possibility in the future. It was just space.
Was it, well, part of it, Martell's nature that contributed to you, even though the separation took place, for you guys still to be good to each other?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And of course his family, we're still close to this day as well. So it was just a embracing thing, and it was also a respect thing. You know, very respectful towards each other.
And you were a couple for a lot of years.
Oh yeah, 2007. We were together for 13 years before we separated.
Okay, let me see what I got here. Oh no, yeah. Let me make sure the time.
Since the time of his death, do you ever wonder?
This is Martell,
Do you
wife.
ever have wonder if you would have gotten back together with him if he had been killed?
I don't know. I do have some type of hurt in my heart because I feel like if we would have never broken up, this would have never happened. I felt like in some form or fashion, I was almost like a protector. So I felt like I wasn't there to keep negative energy away from him, or he wasn't naive, but I just feel like, you know, you let people around to help them, and sometimes they can take your kindness for weakness.
Throughout this trial, throughout the week, we've seen in the courtroom various members.
Okay, y'all, I'm gonna skip it a little bit. But that's his wife. And okay, so they didn't deliberate. Hold on, let me see. Okay, y'all, here we go. It's quiet. They waiting on the jury to come back in, y'all. That was his Martell wife on the stand, and the girl who liked him, the one shot him. This was Beyonce's cousin.
All right, the jury. Maybe seated. That's what Brad said.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard all of the evidence as far as punishment. We are going to go ahead and stick with the original plan. It is nearing 3:30. I know you've had a long day, and I did tell you to expect to leave by 5. So I don't want to compromise or influence any of your verdicts as far as punishment. It's very important that you have the time that you think you need to deliberate. So we are going to come back tomorrow at 9 with the same intent and plan that we did today. What we're going to do is I am going to read you another charge as to punishment, and then you will hear closing arguments from both sides, and we will await your deliberations. So you go tonight with my same instructions, not to discuss the evidence or the trial with anybody in your household or even amongst yourselves, and not to do any outside research or look at any live stream coverage or any YouTube comments especially. We will see you tomorrow. Please have a safe night. 9 a.m.
All right, the jury.
They said she was found guilty, but I don't know how they know that. But she was found guilty, y'all. It's weird how they did that. Had to spend the rest of her life in prison. Okay, set 12. All right, y'all. That's it tomorrow. They really gonna tell you that she's found guilty. Y'all like, share, and subscribe.